in the book company and in some other places. Also our organization, we sold also the book. Yeah, I'm working on certification a lot of years now. I think it's not a very interesting topic because we work on certification because we have different campaigns against agrofuels or so-called biofuels, for example, palm oil, soy, and other stuff. And every time we tackle these problems, these products, the companies tell to us, yeah, okay, we know there are some problems, but we are on the way to be certified under the palm oil label or the soy label or whatever label you can imagine. There are already more than thousands of different labels for every product you can imagine, and it's impossible to control this already. Also experts, they don't know, they cannot have they don't know what all these labels are about. Most of these labels are pure greenwash, they are invented by the companies. Some labels are more complex and more serious, but in the end, they cannot solve the problems, I guess. And for me, we are writing articles about these products like palm oil or agrofuels in the certification, but yeah, it's also very interesting to get in touch with people and to discuss it, because I write it from my computer, but there's not real interaction with the people a lot of times. And yeah, that's the moment.
Okay, did anybody already felt asleep until now, or can we continue for 15 minutes? Or do I need to launch another provocation to one or another nationality to keep you awake? No? Everybody awake? Okay. Then we had, out of this conference during the day, came some general ideas that we want to spread after the conference, and that will make up the bottom line for Climaxi for the next years or the next decades or ages, until we get a recognition of our government. I want to give you 3 minutes to react on that, and then organize some reactions from the audience. First one is we need, in general, an autonomous ecological environmental movement that makes alliances with people from the south, with the workers' movement in the north and the south, with oppressed people, indigenous people, rather than an ecological environmental movement that becomes middle-class orientated and takes the easiest way to work with industry, etc. The second point is that what we discussed today is in fact what is on the surface. We have labels, we have greenwashing, we have a lot of tricks in this ending circus, but the baseline is what Bernard Mazin said this morning. We became in a society of deregulation. We became in a society of neoliberalism, in which people don't believe, or in which leading people don't believe anymore, that you can make laws in a democratic society that you just can give to industry and organizations. We don't have to sit on the table to negotiate. We don't have to be in the same game or in the same boat. We can organize pressure and make democratic laws, and we need a movement that is standing against deregulation and neoliberalism too. The third thing I already said that was that we were going to organize a conference in Germany. I'm not welcome anymore, okay. Then I come to visit you in the meantime, okay? And the third is that what happened in Rio, trying to build a green economy, is in fact trying to organize the same destruction of the planet in one or another commercial way, and there is a big difference between green economy and ecological social economy. I want to give the Maybe we can start with you, Klaus, or is somebody else ready to begin?
4 questions, I think.
3?
Not a lot
Only 3.
lost.
Only 3 proposals: an autonomous environmental movement with alliances in North and South, workers' unions, poverty organizations. The second, green economy is not ecological economy. And the third, we have to stand against deregulation, because the problems that we discussed today are only the surface of an economical system in which we are living already since several hundred years.
About the first, I think there already exists a global network, and a lot of social and environmental organizations in the world are connected to each other, and we also try to give the people in the south a voice in the north, because our consumption, as you know, has a lot of impacts on their daily life, and also to directly to support them, and like Nina, who traveled to Paraguay, and we also travel from time to time to visit affected people and projects. But of course, this has to got much more stronger because we are also only a few thousand active or professional, to call it like this, environmental and social activists in Europe, and there are huge international companies with thousands and thousands and millions of employees who are working on all these destructive activities, and also politicians like the European Community with this agrofuel or bioenergy policy, for example, which has great impacts on the people in the environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Nina?
Yeah, well, these are 3 very big topics, but I think that, yeah, it's absolutely necessary that there is contact and cooperation between grassroots, between the North and the South. I don't think it's really difficult in Europe to say who's middle class, who's working class, or who is falls in which category. But I think it's really important that people start to connect with each other. I think in Europe it's particularly difficult. People are much less organized than in the South. People are much more politicized in many southern countries, and in Europe we have the European Union. If people are politicized, it's very often on the national or on the local level and not on the EU level. So the people that do look at EU policies, at what's going on in Brussels, what corporations and lobbyists are trying to achieve here, it's very few people, and it's mostly people in NGOs or maybe universities, and it's very hard to get this information across to a wider public, because the EU is 27 member states with different medias, with different languages, and I think so I just want to say what in Europe is a little bit an obstacle in making people aware of all this greenwash, because still media are giving people the impression that everything is being arranged on the national level and not so much on the EU level. And on deregulation, yeah, of course, in my view, I think a lot of parts of the movement are really aware that there's a constant drive for deregulation, especially also on the EU level. We can see that very clearly. But on the other hand, it's not just that. Regulation is creating markets that are just as destructive as the liberalized markets. The carbon market wouldn't exist without laws. The agrofuels wouldn't exist without laws pushing them. So you should also look for, all the perverse subsidies that are being pushed by governments, for industry. So it's not just deregulation, of course.
Matthias?
So I think it is important to really analyze very well, let's say, what is changing now in the field of ecology, in the broad environmental movement. And what you see, and we have been discussing it today, is that more and more companies, multinationals, are interested to give themselves a green profile, a green image. And what you see is that this has had an impact on the environmental movement. Big NGOs, the most institutionalized NGOs, have finally seen their chance to become mainstream. If the big companies, if all governments, etc., if there is a kind of greening of their consciousness, it's really the opportunity to become mainstream. We were in the margin for so long, now we can become mainstream. And what these forces have had to do is to change their way of thinking. And they have had to adopt a new way of thinking, which indeed, with Ben Armazijn, we can call neoliberalism. It's a way of thinking that says that the market is central. And if you want to change something, you will have to do it through the market. And that is exactly what is happening. And what is this way of thinking? It is saying, who are the most important actors for change? It is companies. It is companies, you have to work together with companies because they are the actors with the power and the means to change. From there comes the hope. Consumers. This new way of thinking says consumers, they have buying power and they should use the buying power to change something, to create market niches for environmental products, etc. So if you say that we need an autonomous ecological movement and the real problem is neoliberalism, it is there. So what we need, it's an environmental movement, ecological movement who does not follow this way of thinking, who does not think that the market is the goal and the mechanism, the means to change everything, but who says, no, we need democracy. We need democratic control on what is being produced, how it is being produced, etc. That can sound far-fetched, but it can be very concrete. It can be very, social movements that contest certain decisions or certain acts by companies, for example, they are living democracy. They are indeed democratic control from below, making certain things visible that are not visible now, contesting certain practices, etc. They create democratic political spaces. So indeed, an autonomous ecological movement who takes a distance from this market thinking, like we have done today, and who tries to make visible the problematic things that are happening there. And we don't have to defend anything. We don't have to defend all kinds of companies. We don't have to do all kinds of strange arguments like some big NGOs have in order to defend and legitimate what we are doing. We can just say the truth. And that is what we have to do. Being autonomous, saying the truth, or it's difficult to say I claim what is absolute truth. I know that there's a philosophical debate about it, but trying to remain loyal to yourself.
Don't start a philosophical debate.
Exactly, I won't, because that leads us too far. But that is what we need indeed. So an ecological movement who does not take this trend of trying to be mainstream, but it's an illusion, I think, and who remains critical and puts forward alternative solutions. Public regulation, I agree that public regulation can also be very problematic, but really from below social movements which demand certain regulations from governments. It can be very concrete. This morning we had a discussion about emissions trading, etc. We are against emissions trading. We think this system should be replaced by something else. But here and now we can already advance demands that say, okay, at least suspend CDM, stop CDM. That you can do very concrete things in order to change something now and to avoid this market logic.
We have time for 5 interventions of 1 minute coming out of the audience. And in the meantime, the musicians are ready because we stop this day with a fine concert. We want to mix engagement, politics, and culture. That's why we call it Climaxi. This is saying nothing, but okay. And I want to thank too the people that organized the techniques, Mark and the man that is making a little movie for us that will appear on the website, Bart, and his crowd for all the stuff they did today. I just said this to give you half a minute time to prepare your